welcome back to my read-along of A Tale of Stars and Shadow. Today we're up to chapter 34. Let's jump right in. Alrighty. Talyn managed sleep in her room that night, thanks to Talyn's ability to relieve the pain in her shoulder, and despite her frustration at having to miss the alleya match. The panic attack she'd suffered on being shot had left her wrung out, and her eyes slid closed the minute her head touched the pillow. She awoke early in the morning when her shoulder started to ache, her other muscles registering their complaints too from the sandbagging and swimming. That wasn't unfamiliar though. She'd woken stiff and sore and injured, plenty of times in the past. This time it only served as a stark reminder that she wouldn't be limping downstairs to the mess to be teased by her partner and friends, to endure the good-natured ribbing about getting too old to be a Callanan, or how she'd only gotten hurt because she'd been too slow. She wouldn't be dishing out the same kind of teasing. No, all that was gone. It was difficult to dress with her arm wrapped in a sling, and by the time she dragged her shirt and breeches and boots on, her shoulder throbbed with a fierce ache she did her best to ignore. She limped over to her little kitchen. Her knee was also aching, so she made herself a cup of tea and added some pain herbs Talyn had given her. She'd just taken the first sip when a sharp rap sounded at her door. Ravania stood there, eyes going straight to her sling. Talyn Parkson informed me of what happened yesterday. Are you all right, Captain? I'll be fine. Talyn did a good job, she assured him. I have written a formal missive to your king and First Shield Sienna, apologising for what happened and assuring them of your full recovery. Ravania seemed uneasy, as if he worried that she, or her uncle, was going to blame him for what had happened. I hope you can accept my apologies too, Captain. I assure you it won't happen again. I will assign some falcons to... I appreciate that, sir, but I don't need falcon protection, she cut him off politely. Her uncle would be concerned to hear that she'd been hurt, but she doubted it would affect diplomatic relations, as Ravania seemed to fear. Do you have any information on who was behind the attack? No, his fidgeting increased. Perhaps more than worry over how the Twin Thrones might respond was unsettling him. This was the second event to happen in the space of months his falcons had no explanation for. However, I have ordered the city patrol to prioritise identifying the perpetrator. She speared him with a look. The wolves thought perhaps somebody wanted to prevent me playing in today's game. Ravania's expression tightened. I disagree. Your wing isn't going to win today, with or without you. There's no need to hire someone to attack you. I can only assume it must have been a mistake of some sort. That stung, but she kept her face bland. It was full daylight when it happened, sir. Not easy to mistake me for somebody else. Even so, it wouldn't have happened if you and your wing hadn't stayed down in the city to help with the floods. Not to mention one of them could have been hurt ahead of the game. At the very least, they must still be exhausted. I'm sure they are, she said equably. But they, and I, judge lives and homes more important than an exhibition game they've been set up to lose anyway. I've already warned you to be careful, Captain Dynan. He stepped away, wings spreading wide. Don't make me do it again. I'll see you this afternoon. Seeking out a distraction from her soreness and lingering emptiness of spirit, she made her slow way down into Dock City. As usual, it was a beautiful, sunny morning. The birds were singing again, and the sun held the promise of uncomfortable warmth later in the day. The streets were as busy with people as they always were, though today many of them were working to clear up flood damage. From snatches of conversation she caught as she walked by, the main topic of discussion seemed to be the festival the following day. Some of them recognised Talyn and gave her a wave and a greeting. She smiled back, the simple human interaction breathing some life back into her. The city had pulled through. Some lives had been lost, many more homes, but it could have been much worse. And Talyn had been part of the reason for that, her and her wolves. She repeated that to herself like a mantra as she walked. It took her some time, but she found the cafe Corin had taken her to before. Inside, she asked for a mug of carvy and a sweet pastry. While waiting for the carvy to be made, a familiar young man appeared from out the back, stilling at the sight of her. Captain. I never did catch your name, she lifted an eyebrow. It's Petro. I own this place. He moved out from behind the serving counter, offering a faint smile. Best carvy in Dock City. Is that so? She smiled, then lowered her voice. I just came to say thank you. Surprise flashed over his face, and then the small smile stretched to a full one. You're the one that deserves the thanks, Captain Dynan. How's that shoulder? Sore, but it will get better. The woman behind the counter passed over a steaming cup along with the pastry, but when Talyn went to pay, Petro refused to take it. A carvy and pastry is the least we can do in thanks. Are you sure? She was a little taken aback. What she and the wolves had done the previous night was what any warrior would have done back at home. He nodded eagerly. Come back any time, Captain. Those pastries are even better when we manage to get a supply of apples to make them with. She ate and drank as she strolled towards the wall. The pastry was delicious, buttery and hot, and seasoned with cinnamon. The carvey gave her a fresh jolt of warm energy, and Talyn made a note to go back. Petro hadn't been unfairly bragging about the quality of his carvey. She reached the wall path and made her way up slowly, taking care not to exert her knee. The sun was already warm enough that she'd worked up a sweat by the time she reached the top. Far below, Feather Bay was a glittering spectacle, as if the day and night of floods had never been. Negotiating the citadel was difficult now her muscles were tiring. She had to climb ladders one-handed and cross their swaying bridges without both arms to balance with. But eventually she came to the small bridge that led across to Prince Kewin's tower. Her shoulder was throbbing again, and her knee hadn't liked the ladders much. She limped across the bridge and knocked on the door. A moment later it was yanked open from the inside, and Kewin appeared in the doorway. "What happened to you?" he asked, amusement dancing in his emerald eyes as he looked her up and down, absolutely no trace of concern in his face or voice. "I fell down the stairs," she said dryly. "Can I come in?" He stepped back and gestured her inside. The amusement on his face as she walked past made her grind her teeth in irritation. "You're annoyed with me again," he said. "What have I done now?" Talyn cursed his ability to read emotions for the 1000th time and reined in her irritation. "I'm not annoyed with you." There was movement at the top of the spiral stairs leading up to Kewin's bedroom level, and a beautiful winged woman appeared, wrapped only in a sheet. She smiled politely at Talyn and directed a fully fledged grin down at the prince. "Good morning, Xana," a lure oozed from his voice. "Do you mind leaving us for a minute? I need to speak to my captain." "Don't be long," she said seductively, returning to the bedroom and closing the door. "I'm sorry, did I interrupt something important?" Talyn fought to keep sarcasm from her tone. Kewin waved his hand dismissively. "Her? No, not at all. How can I help you? You might start with explaining how you got those injuries. I can be somewhat dim-witted, I'll admit that, but I'm not quite stupid enough to believe you fell down some stairs." "I was shot by an arrow." He grinned, as if he thought she were making a joke. "Seriously?" "It was yesterday afternoon, while I was walking in the garden of Mayor Doran's home. Talyn got the arrow out and stitched me up, but I can't use my arm at all, so I can't play today." He managed an expression of mild concern. She figured she should be grateful for that, but it was quickly gone, replaced by puzzlement. "Are you sure? Why would anyone shoot you?" "Yes, I'm quite certain that I was shot by an arrow." She kept her voice calm with an effort. "It's possible that somebody doesn't want me playing in the game today. Maybe someone thinks the wolves can't win without me?" He snorted, dropping onto his sofa and stretching his long legs out before him. "That somebody figured right." "Not if you play." "What?" Incredulity sent his voice a full pitch higher than normal. "You've boasted to me on numerous occasions how often you play alleya and how good you are. We could use another winged man on the team, especially one with your skill and experience. The wolves are your wing, after all." "Never going to happen," he said flatly. "Why not?" "A prince playing a game of alleya with humans against a team of winged folk? You realize Azralan himself won't be playing." He laughed. "Imagine how stupid I'd look. I don't even have warrior magic, Captain." "Do you want to be humiliated in front of your brothers when Prince Azralan's team destroys yours? Isn't that Prince Mathanas's goal, make you an even less likely candidate for the throne?" "It would be far more humiliating to actually be playing with the losing team, Captain," he said languidly. "At least this way I can distance myself from the whole ridiculous affair." With an effort she reined in her temper, but her control faded as quickly as it had come. "You don't deserve them, Prince." He lifted an eyebrow, utterly unbothered by her tone. "Is there anything else you wanted, Captain?" "No," she snapped, striding to the door and firmly ignoring the pain from her knee. "I wouldn't want you to have to put yourself to any sort of effort. I'll see you at the game." Her ire faded quickly as she limped away from Kewin's tower. She would never dream of speaking to a charge that way back in the Twin Thrones, and not because she would be whipped for it, but because duty and respect would hold her tongue. She was ashamed of herself. She was still so raw, and her once masterful control seemed to fade entirely around Kewin. "He doesn't deserve anyone's respect," Sari muttered. "That doesn't matter, Sari. I'm King Shield. I should let his behaviour wash over me. My only job is to protect him." "I know." Talyn had asked Talyn to show her the alleya Stadium weeks earlier. As with most things made by the winged folk, it was an absolute marvel of architecture. The grassy rectangular field where the game was played was situated on a level section of forest floor far below the citadel. Tiered seating cascaded down, enclosing the field completely from the forest outside. The stadium was built from the same creamy marble that the Great Wall was made from. He pointed out where the royal family would sit in a viewing balcony close to the field, and other spots where noble families owned balconies. The one he'd rather sheepishly pointed out as his family's was closer to the Condor's box than any other that he pointed out. And you winged folk let the humans in here to sully all this magnificence with their presence, she noted dryly. Only once a year, he'd smirked, and the seating is sharply demarcated. Humans on the western side, winged folk on the east. She tried to imagine what that empty stadium must look like today as she headed inside at a lower level. The Wolves had been assigned a room in the western section of the stadium to wait for their appearance. The room formed part of what seemed to be a rabbit warren of corridors and rooms built in underneath the seating. There were no windows, but the sound of thumping feet penetrated the roof above them from people moving to their seats. Occasionally the sound of cheering and clapping drifted down the hall outside. As soon as she appeared, Talyn came over to inspect her shoulder. How are you feeling? My shoulder and knee are both a little sore, she admitted. I can fix that for you, he offered. No, you need to save your energy for the game. I'll be fine. Injuries like these were part of the life of a warrior. She'd gotten through them before and would do so again. He tossed her a packet of herbs. At least make yourself some tea with those later. It'll help. I went down to talk some old patrol contacts this morning, Theak said. They have nothing on who attacked you yesterday. Whoever the masked, cloaked man was, he disappeared good. And I'm sure the patrolmen are trying extra hard to find him, Zamrel muttered. She doubted they would ever find the man. The attack had been high risk, dressed so distinctly in a wealthier area of Dock City and in full daylight. Yet the opportunity to catch him had been right away. By now that cloak and mask was gone, and unless anyone had actually seen him disappear, they weren't catching him. Doesn't matter, Corin said tearfully. We have another plan to deal with whoever it was. What's that? She asked suspiciously. You'll see. He turned his attention to lacing up his boots. Please don't forget that you're protective guards, not patrolmen, she addressed the room. Your focus should be on the protection of Prince Kuan, nothing else. Which it will be, if he ever lets us near him, Theak assured her. He was far too cheerful. They all were. None of them looked depressed or apathetic as they changed into their wolf uniforms, grey on white. Halun wore his sleeveless vest with breeches and boots. Theak wore the whole uniform, as did Talyn. Zamrel and Corin wore their shirts with the sleeves rolled up. Once they were ready, Talyn led them through extensive stretching exercises. Considering they had no spare players, they could ill afford to get injured. By the time a falcon came in to get them, her stomach was a tight ball of anxiety. Already on edge from the emotional fallout of the flashbacks caused by her injury, she had little ability left to manage the anxiousness she felt on behalf of the wolves. Before being let out, they lined up in front of her in a neat row. I know you all believe the Wingguard intend to do their best to humiliate you all out there today, she said. But I want you to hold your heads high, no matter what. She hesitated. What we did together the other night, what you all did, that was real. Today is a game of sport, and no matter what importance the wingfolk attach to it, I know, and you know, and every human out there knows your worth. She cleared her throat. You might lose today, but it won't matter, because you'll already know that you're better than they are, better men and better warriors. There was a silence as the wolves stared at their shoes, clearly embarrassed by her heartfelt speech. Then Theak spoke. We'll do our best for you, Captain. Wish us luck, Corin smiled. Halun gave her the crispest salute she'd ever seen as he passed her. Zamrel's expression was unreadable. Don't worry, Captain, Talyn tossed confidently over his shoulder. We'll do you proud. Okay, that's the end of chapter 4, and if you've read this before, you know what's coming up, and you probably can't wait. I can't wait, so very soon I'm going to jump straight into chapter 35. First, we'll do some author commentary on this one. So as always, if you'd like to avoid spoilers, now's the time to jump out before you get spoiled on things. If you are jumping out here, then it was a pleasure having you. I hope you're enjoying the story, and I really look forward to seeing you for the next chapter. It's going to be a good one, I promise you. Otherwise, shall we step aside and have a little chat about this chapter? So chapter 34 is a fairly quiet chapter. It's the build up to what's coming next, which is going to be pretty epic. And so it's another kind of little quiet calm before the storm. We have Talyn waking up the morning after the attack on her in the garden at the mayor's residence. She's back up at the Citadel, and she's pretty physically and emotionally wrung out after the events of the past few days. You know, the shoulder's sore, the body's stiff and sore from everything that she did, but she's even more so emotionally wrung out from the trauma that was brought back to the surface of her mind from being shot with the arrow and the memories of Sari's death that roused. But Ravania shows up at her door. She has that conversation with him. He's pretty uncomfortable. He's worried about what the implications of a foreign soldier being attacked on his soil will mean in terms of Mithrana's relationship with the Twin Thrones. Talyn's relatively unbothered about this. Of course, she knows her uncle, she knows her family, she knows what kind of rulers they are, whereas Ravania comes from a country where his rulers are like horrible people, let's be honest. And they don't respond to things in the same way that Talyn's family responds to things. So he's pretty uncomfortable about that. And as Talyn rightly suspects, he's also now got an army, a city patrol, a Falcon army that is proving to be pretty inept when serious things are now happening. First, the break-in at the Citadel, now an attack on a foreign guest. He has nothing, the Falcons have nothing, the city patrol has nothing, and that's a pretty bad look. But that's for Ravania to manage. He kind of has dug himself his own hole there, really. And Talyn's not hugely concerned about him. And as I said, she's not particularly worried about her family, how her family's going to react. Either they know that she's a warrior, she knows that they trust her and rely on her, and then that they're not going to respond without, proper thought and reasoned thinking to what's happened. She then takes a walk down to Dock City, enjoys the morning, breathes in the fresh air, and whether she notices this yet or not, as a balm to her kind of very raw spirits after the previous few days, being out and about in Dock City amongst the people, the music, the way they talk, the way they get on, the way they work together, the interaction with Petra at the cafe, her cup of coffee, the pastry, it all soothes her. This place is becoming somewhere that she feels good, that she feels safe, and that might be not something she's consciously understanding yet, but that will start to become more and more important as the story progresses and Talyn starts to think about where her home might truly be, even though she still feels very much Adrian Norwich from the Twin Thrones, her birthplace being Columbia. That's always going to be a part of her, but this place is becoming somewhere where she's starting to heal, even if it's only just the very beginnings of that, and starting to feel better, starting to come back to herself, or at least become the person that she's going to be following Sari's death. And that little moment down in Dock City was a deliberate attempt to kind of start to illustrate that, even though it's not something that Talyn's necessarily recognizing yet, but just to show that this place is good for her. Now, there are going to be some consequences of the bond that she's building with Mithrana and its people, obviously, when it comes to how Mithanas and Azraman and the Queen might view that relationship. But for now, it's this nice little start of peace that she's getting and healing that she's getting, which is really nice. And then she heads back up to the Citadel. It's almost time for the alleya game. She meets the wolves in the ready room, I guess, as they're preparing to head out and play. And their attitude has turned 180 degrees from what it was leading up to the floods. The apathetic, dispirited, depressed bunch is gone. They're positive, they're chipper, they're cheerful. They don't seem bothered by what's about to happen. They reference having a plan, and if you've read further on, you know what that plan is, and we're going to see that very soon. Poor Talyn's a bit in the dark, but she's going to see it soon too, and she's going to see exactly what impacts she has had, even though it doesn't feel like to her that she has had that much of an impact. We are about to see exactly what she has done with those 5 men, and that's going to be epic. So I'll leave it there, and we'll get on to the next chapter soon. But if you have any questions or comments about this one, please drop it in the comments below. I'd love to chat about it. Otherwise, I hope you're enjoying this, and I hope you have a great day. I look forward to seeing you soon for the next chapter. Bye.